I don't know where that came from. And James is a friend of mine, but I let the front office handle all of that stuff. I was just so focused on working out. I heard all the noise, and I heard that, James potentially wanted to come to the Nets, but anybody can make up stories. Anybody can write a story, and it gets some traction. So, nothing's ever set in stone till it's set in stone. So I never thought too much about it. Just focused on myself, and my teammates probably did the same thing, and, just move forward.
Richard, producer Steve didn't put that in BS or Real Talk segment, but I don't know. Do you believe him, and what do you think the Russ trade means for Harden's future?
No, I believe Kevin Durant because I know this, and that's why it was a little surprising that him and Kyrie teamed up in New York is because the media has a tendency to bite onto something and really run with it. He's right. He lets the front office do what he does. And that Kevin Durant that I heard right there is the same Kevin Durant that we heard towards the end of his time in Golden State, where he doesn't want to answer questions about other players. He doesn't want to answer questions about trades or free agency. He wants to get back to playing basketball. So I 100% believe him in that moment. As far as the James Harden situation goes, what I see, and we're going to talk about Giannis, what I see from James is that, okay, it's great. I've scored a lot of points. I've made my mark. I've won my MVP. I want to win a championship now. All of that scoring and all of that stuff is secondary.
Well, Rachel, I have no comment on KD. All I'm going to do is this. I have no comment whether I believe him or not. I'm going to leave that up in the air. But I will say this about James Harden's situation with the Rockets. The Rockets are not about to give him up right now. And they're going to try to hold this thing out. And from what I'm hearing is they're going to try to have a trial run for like the first half of the season or maybe the first 25 games to see how it goes. Now, what you should be looking for is looking at what the Philadelphia 76ers are doing 25 games in, and then look at what the Rockets are doing 25 games in. If it's not working well with James Harden and John Wall, I expect Daryl Morey to be aggressive in pursuing James Harden. Trust me.
Well, this James Harden.
Wait, real quick. No. So, let's say again, Philly would most likely want to not give up, Joel Embiid, or let's say, because then you would think John Wall and Ben Simmons. You couldn't trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. So I don't know. I put Philly on the outside of that list only from the standpoint of, Joel Embiid would really be the only major star, because if you tried to pair Ben Simmons with John Wall, that's not a match that anyone wants to see.
And I get that, RJ, but we're talking about Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey is known to pull rabbits out the hat. So don't just think of it as just Ben Simmons. It could be a three-team trade or whatever the case may be, but he's going to pursue James Harden if the Rockets are 25, 30 games in and not doing well. Trust me.
Well, this is going to be an interesting case study with the Houston Rockets and James Harden in this age of player empowerment. The team obviously built everything around James, gave him the Supermax, and then last year made a trade for Russell Westbrook that, frankly, some of the front office wouldn't. But let's just say they wouldn't have made it if it was up to them. And yet now he wants to be traded somewhere else. And he's got 2 years left on his deal. How much they decide to cater to what he wants, how he decides to play while he is still in Houston, this is going to be very interesting to watch. Now, just a friendly reminder on one of the Coach Doc Rivers. Well, you take a listen.
So when I came back into the league and started playing again, I just felt off. Like I didn't feel like a part of the team. And then, the way I was being used, I felt like I was, Doc was trying to play me as like a Ray Allen or like a JJ Redick, like all pin downs, all like, I can do it, but that ain't my game, right? You know what I mean? I need some flow. I need some mixes of pick and rolls. I need some post ups, all that, just different touches. You know what I mean?
All right, Perk, is PG saying that Doc didn't play him in the right spots? BS or real talk? I can't tell what your answer is. It's just hard to see where you're going here. That's it?
You know what, Rachel? That's BS. Matter of fact, that's a bunch of BS. And it was a coward move by Paul George by blaming Doc Rivers for his lack of productivity and not being accountable for him not showing up on the basketball court. Because of anybody who watched the Clippers play, this season and in the bubble know that Paul George wasn't just coming off of pin downs, that he had the ball in his hands. He was able to run pick and rolls. He was able to get post-ups. Do you know this past season when Paul George had the ball in his hands, it was the most ever that he ran pick and rolls with the ball in his hands in his career. And by the way, he told another lie. I'm pretty sure about this. Listen, Doc Rivers did not treat Paul George like he was Ray Allen, because you know why? Ray Allen not coming off of pin downs and missing wide open three-pointers. So I know that was a lie off the top. It was a cowardless move, in my opinion, and he should have held himself accountable and not throw Doc under the bus for him not performing the way he should have performed, period.
Well, that's super strong, Perk, and I'm distracted by Richard not understanding where the camera is with his phone. Go ahead.
No, this is BS. This is the BS, and it's getting out of hand. Like, this is getting out of hand. Like, Paul George is putting himself in a position to, not necessarily to be criticized, but it's like, I have yet to hear a legitimate, like, you know what? I need to be better. I heard him say that during the postseason, and he actually corrected himself. You saw he had some really good games after struggling a little bit. He was open about struggling in the bubble. And people have given Paul George, I don't want to say a pass, because he's one of the more talented players. He's one of the best two-way players in this league. He is the reason why one of the reasons why that I picked him to win the championship. But when you start criticizing your coach on the way out, you could easily have just said, hey, look, you know what? It didn't work out. There were some things that, there was some rhythm things. But to call out pick and rolls, and then people go to the stats and say, wait, you played more pick and roll here than you ever did, and a higher percentage of plays, that just shows that, like, look, at the end of the day, do I believe Paul George believes this? Yes. I believe that Paul George believes that it was Doc Rivers' fault. But ultimately, Perk and I both know this. When you're a superstar, when you have your own signature shoe from Nike, you're one of 5 guys with a signature shoe by Nike. Those things aren't just given out. Those are given out to the elite of the elite of the elite. You can't shoot shots off the side of the backboard in the fourth quarter after being up 3-1 in double digits in every single game. You can't talk about the coach and the rhythm and the pick and rolls. You can't do that.
Well, you guys both talked about the numbers. Here they are. We can show them. And you're right, Perk. This was a career high for him. Plays where he finished in the pick and roll, 33%. So the numbers are just the numbers there, right? Now, organizationally, and I'm not talking about specifics with Paul George, organizationally, clearly, the Clippers as a whole, at least in some part, felt that Doc Rivers had blame in what happened last season because he's the one they got rid of. So that's how you know that they held him accountable, but also sometimes the coach is the easiest one to change. I think sometimes conversations like this happen when there's too much time in an offseason. I'm not sure how this managed to happen in a short offseason, but the bottom line for Paul George or anyone else on that Clippers team is that they have to be accountable this coming season. And I think the only thing that they have in their advantage on that score is if the expectations were very high going into last season. Richard, you said you picked them, right, to win a title? I don't think those expectations are that high this season, right? I mean, you guys aren't picking them as your favorite to win the title, so they can only beat them, right?
Well, they should. The expectations should be high. The only reason why the expectations have dropped is because of their performance, right? Like, that's the key thing. It's not that somebody's injured or they lost a ton of people in free agency or they lost some. No, it's because we saw their performance or lack thereof, and so everyone's expectations have now dropped. But they are still one of the top 2 or 3 teams. If you tell me this year, with the roster that they have, if they play great, that the Clippers can win the championship, I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be like, yo, yeah, they have all the pieces there necessary to win a championship. It's just a matter of whether or not players play up to their capability. And it wasn't just Paul George. Kawhi Leonard was at fault at a lot of this too. He had a god-awful second half and a god-awful fourth quarter. So we can't just focus in on Paul George. It was the pairing of the two.
And you know what's crazy is that some of my old coaches like Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell, some of my older brothers, my family from the Celtics, even Ty Lue would call me and Coach Rex, and say, Perk, you got the Lakers to winning the championship? That's how you feel? And I was like, yeah. for one of my many reasons is I didn't trust Paul George, and not in the crucial moments. From his history, even when you go back to Oklahoma City, I remember one game in particular. It was a closeout game in Utah, and he went, 2 for 15 from the field while Russ dropped 45. And after that, I saw his body language, and I could see it in his eyes, and I told him all season, I don't trust Paul George, and this is the reason why.
Well, look, as someone who worked sidelines for some of his games in Indiana where they went toe-to-toe with LeBron, I know that Paul George has it in him. I am interested to see what happens this coming season. When challenged, what do you do? All right, next up, let's talk about Damian Lillard. We know what he does when he's challenged. He joined hip-hop legend Fat Joe for an IG Live conversation, and he was asked about the bubble. Take a listen to what he had to say.
To me personally, the bubble was way easier because it was just like, it was really no distractions. We didn't have to travel after games. It was like boom, boom, get up the next morning, practice all in one spot. So like our bodies was recovering faster. We was more rested. I mean, it was way easier to me. I think that's why you saw a lot of people just killing like that.
All right, guys, I want to see your emojis on both of you. What do you got? Ooh, some real talk. Give it to me, Perk. Why?
Look, one thing about it, I believe Dame Dollar is one of the realest that the NBA has ever seen, and he has never shown me any type of BS. So if we're gonna have him on this segment, BS or real talk, it's always gonna be real talk because Dame Dollar was dropping 50s in that bubble. So I believe every word that he's saying.
I respect Dame this because all of us took a little bit of heat when we saw these elevated numbers by so many players, right? We saw the Phoenix Suns play the best basketball that they've played in 9 years. We saw Jamal Murray. We saw Donovan Mitchell. We saw TJ Warren. We saw some amazing numbers, even the young fellas for the Miami Heat. And You saw the way Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. There was something that was very simple about playing a game, going straight to your room, waking up, having all the rest, no distraction, no nothing to do, no travel, and then getting back into the gym and playing in that exact same gym again. It helped a ton of shooters. If you can mentally lock in and focus, you saw it. That's why there were numbers that we had never seen before. 50 balls.